What if the person meant to love you most is terrified to love you at all? Let that question linger for a moment. Let it unravel in your chest like a slow burning fuse. Because this isn't about unrequited love or mixed signals. This is about the sacred terror that strikes the masculine heart when it encounters a love so vast it threatens to rewrite his entire existence. Picture a man standing at the edge of a cliff, toes curling over the abyss, staring into a valley so breathtaking it makes his knees weak. That's what your love feels like to him. Not just beautiful, dangerous. Not because it could hurt him, but because it could change him. And change, when you've spent a lifetime building an identity brick by brick, feels less like evolution and more like demolition. Their fear isn't shallow. It's not commitment phobia or emotional unavailability. It's the primal recoil of a soul recognizing its own reflection after lifetimes of wandering in the dark. Imagine being handed a mirror that doesn't show your face, but your essence, every wound, every glory, every unspoken dream you buried, because the world told you it was too much. Wouldn't you flinch? The masculine doesn't run from you. He runs from the reckoning your love demands. The way it illuminates corners of himself he boarded up long ago. The way it whispers, you are more than your achievements, deeper than your logic, softer than your armor. And softness, to a man conditioned to believe strength is rigidity, feels like surrender to quicksand. But here's the divine irony. The very love that scares him is the only thing that can free him. Not by force, not by chasing, but by standing in your own radiance so fiercely that his shadows have nowhere left to hide. So tell me, are you ready to see his fear for what it truly is? Not rejection, but the trembling first step toward his own awakening. You ever stood too close to a bonfire? Not the timid little campfire where you roast marshmallows. No, the kind that roars, that licks the sky, that makes your skin prickle with heat even when you step back. That's what your love feels like to him. Not warm, not comforting, consuming. And if he's not ready to be burned down to his core, he'll run like a man who just realized he's been playing with wildfire. See, feminine energy isn't just love, it's alchemy. It doesn't just accept, it transforms. And that's the terrifying part for the masculine. He doesn't fear you, he fears what your love will turn him into. Because once he lets it in, there's no going back to who he was. And that's the kind of spiritual vertigo that makes a man bolt for the door. Think about it. What's the first thing we do when we touch something too hot? We pull away. Instinct, survival. Your love isn't just felt, it's lived. It's the kind of energy that rewires his nervous system, that makes him question every cold, logical decision he's ever made. And if he's spent his whole life building walls, your presence isn't just knocking, it's dissolving the bricks. Of course he's scared. Wouldn't you be? Here's the irony. The masculine wants this. On a soul level, he craves it, but the human part of him, the part that still clings to control, to predictability, that part is screaming, abort mission, because your energy doesn't ask for permission, it demands surrender. And surrender, to a man who spent his life managing emotions, or worse, avoiding them, feels like free falling without a parachute. Ever watch a cat confronted with a cucumber? That hilarious, instinctive jump? That's him when your love catches him off guard. It's not you. It's the shock of realizing he's been sleepwalking through life, And suddenly, here you are, holding a mirror to his soul. And mirrors don't lie. They show the cracks, the unhealed wounds, the parts of himself he's been too afraid to face. No wonder he flinches. But here's the secret he doesn't know yet. Your fire isn't here to destroy him. It's here to forge him. The same way gold must melt before it's purified. The same way a forest fire clears the dead wood, so new life can grow. Your love is the kind of chaos that creates. But chaos, no matter how divine, is still chaos. And chaos is the one thing the masculine mind is wired to resist. So what's the solution? Do you dim your light? Hell no. You stay exactly as radiant as you are. Because the truth is, his fear isn't your responsibility to manage. His running isn't your fault. And his eventual return, that's between him and the universe. But while you wait, because let's be real, twin flame journeys love their dramatic pauses. Remember this: the masculine doesn't run from weak love. He runs from the love that's strong enough to change him. And that's the highest compliment he could ever pay you, even if it doesn't feel like one right now. So tell me, Divine One, when he does come back, and he will you recognize the man who's finally learned to stop fearing the fire? Stay tuned. Next, we unravel why his biggest fear isn't losing you. It's losing the version of himself he thought he had to be. You know that feeling when you stand at the edge of the sea, toes digging into wet sand, watching the waves roll in with a force that's ancient, endless, alive. That's how he feels when he looks at you. Not intimidated, humbled, not afraid of drowning, afraid of disappointing the tide. Because what if he steps in and the water recoils? What if the ocean takes one glance at him and thinks, "Oh, is that all?" Here's the truth he doesn't tell you. The masculine doesn't fear your love. He fears his own inability to hold it. You're not a pond, not a lake. You're the whole damn ocean. And he's standing there with a thimble, wondering how he's supposed to carry you without spilling a single drop. Think about it. How many times has he been taught that love is transactional, that he must earn it, prove himself worthy of it, and then you come along, offering it freely, unconditionally, like some divine gift he didn't even know was on the menu. Of course he hesitates. Of course he second guesses. Because if he doesn't do anything to deserve this, then what's stopping you from waking up one day and realizing he's just a man, flawed, messy, human? And that's the crux of it, isn't it? You don't love him in spite of his flaws. You love him through them, because of them, in ways he can't even comprehend. But comprehension is his safety net. Logic is his mother tongue. And your love, it speaks in riddles, in poetry, in the silent language of soul recognition that doesn't bother with subtitles. Ever watched a kid handed a priceless artifact? The way their hands shake, their breath catches, their whole body tenses with the terror of, what if I break it? That's him with your heart. That's him with your depth. Because somewhere along the way, he learned that love is fragile, something to be handled with caution, with rules, with measured doses. But you love like a force of nature, and forces of nature don't do caution. So he does the only thing he knows how. He holds back. He rationalizes. He tells himself he'll come closer when he's better, when he's healed, when he's successful, when he's finally the version of himself he thinks you deserve. As if love has ever cared about resumes. But here's what he doesn't realize yet. Your depth isn't a test. It's an invitation. You're not asking him to match your ocean. You're asking him to trust it, to let go of the thimble and just dive, to understand that the waves won't reject him for being human. If anything, they'll rejoice in it. So here's my question for you. When he finally stops measuring himself against an impossible standard and just lets himself be loved, will you recognize the man who's learned to stop fearing his own reflection in your water? Next, why his running has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the stories he's been telling himself about love long before you ever met. Stay tuned. Imagine being handed a newborn star, raw, pulsing, alive with infinite potential, and being told, "Here, hold this, forever." That's what twin flame love feels like to the masculine. Not just a relationship, not just a bond, but a cosmic contract written in the ink of destiny. And the weight of that? Terrifying. Because this isn't the kind of love you can half-ass. This isn't, let's see where it goes. This is where it goes, changes the fabric of who you are. Let's be real. How many of us actually want that level of responsibility? Most people spend their lives dodging accountability like it's a dodgeball in middle school gym class. And then, here comes twin flame love, staring him dead in the eye like, "You're gonna have to grow now. Like all the way grow. No more hiding, no more pretending. You in?" No wonder he hesitates. Wouldn't you? Here's the thing he doesn't say out loud. He knows this is different. He feels it in his bones, in the way his soul vibrates when you're near, in the dreams that linger like fingerprints long after he wakes. But knowing and accepting are two different languages. And right now, he's still fumbling with the translation. Think about it. What's scarier than love? Love with purpose, love with teeth, love that doesn't just ask for his heart, but demands he rearrange his entire life to honor it. That's not romance, that's revolution. And revolutions, they're messy. They burn down the old to make space for the new. And the masculine? He's still got one foot in the ruins, wondering if he's strong enough to walk through the fire. Ever watched someone stand at the edge of a cliff, toes curling over the drop, caught between the fear of falling and the thrill of flight? That's him with your love. Because this isn't just about you. It's about the man he'll have to become to keep you. The man he's always been beneath the armor. And that's the real terror. Not losing you, losing the version of himself he's spent decades carefully constructing. But here's the secret the universe isn't telling him yet. The weight isn't yours to carry alone. Twin flame love isn't a test of strength. It's an alchemy of surrender. It's not about him being ready. It's about him being willing. And willingness? That's a muscle that only grows when stretched. So here's my question for you. When he finally stops seeing this love as a burden and starts recognizing it as the gift it is, when he realizes the sky was never meant to be carried, only lived under, will you recognize the man who's learned to stop fearing his own wings? Picture this. A man spends his whole life building a sandcastle. Not just any sandcastle, a masterpiece. Towers that scrape the sky, moats deep enough to drown in, flags made from seashells that glint in the sun. He's proud of this thing. It's his legacy. And then one day you come along, not with a wave, not with a storm, but with the gentlest tide, and just like that, his castle starts to dissolve. Not because you wanted it to, not because you tried, but because your love is the ocean, darling, and the ocean doesn't do sand castles. That's the real terror for the masculine. It's not that your love isn't good enough, it's that it's too good, too pure, too real, and real love doesn't let you hide behind trophies or titles, or the carefully curated version of yourself you've been selling to the world. Real love looks you dead in the eye and whispers, "I see you." All of you, even the parts you've been hiding from yourself. And that's the kind of intimacy that makes a man want to run for the hills. Because if he's not the job, the status, the achievements, if he's not the armor, then who the hell is he? Let's be honest. Most of us spend our lives collecting labels like they're Pokemon cards. Provider, protector, leader. And then here comes twin flame love, peeling them off one by one like band-aids, until all that's left is just him. Naked, vulnerable, human, and humanity, when you've spent your whole life trying to be a god, is a terrifying thing to face. Ever watch a cat fall off a counter? That frantic scramble mid-air, the sheer indignity of gravity winning? That's him when your love catches him off guard. One minute he's perched on the high horse of his own ego, and the next, splat, right back in his own skin. And skin, when you're not used to living in it, feels tight. But here's what he doesn't realize yet. Your love isn't here to dismantle him. It's here to free him. That sandcastle? It was a prison. Those labels? They were chains. And the man he's so afraid of losing was never the real him to begin with, just the version he thought the world wanted. So here's my question for you. When he finally stops clinging to the wreckage of who he thought he should be and starts embracing the man he actually is, will you recognize the soul who's learned to stop fearing his own reflection? You ever watch a butterfly hesitate at the edge of its cocoon? That moment when it's almost free, wings still crumpled, new and tender, but the safety of the known is right there, just a retreat away? That's him with your love. Not because he doesn't want to fly, but because once he does, there's no going back to being a caterpillar. And that's the kind of finality that makes even the bravest souls pause. Think about it. What's more terrifying than a love that changes you? A love that keeps changing you. A love that doesn't just shift your priorities, but rewires your soul's blueprint. Twin flame union isn't a chapter, it's the rest of the story. And the masculine? He's still flipping through the table of contents, wondering if he's ready to commit to the whole damn book. Most men are conditioned to believe love is disposable, a revolving door of maybes and we'll sees. But your love, it's a vow written in the stars before either of you took a breath on this earth. And vows, when you've spent your life keeping one foot out the door just in case, feel less like promises and more like handcuffs. Not because they are, but because he doesn't yet trust his own hands to stop trying to pick the lock. Ever seen a kid freeze at the top of a water slide? The water's right there, the thrill is right there, but the second before the drop is pure, "Oh God, what have I done?" That's him with your love. Because this isn't just a relationship, it's a point of no return, and no return to a heart that's still healing can feel less like destiny and more like doom. But here's the secret the universe is whispering, and he's just starting to hear. Irreversibility isn't a prison, It's the ultimate liberation. The caterpillar doesn't lose itself when it becomes a butterfly. It remembers itself. And that's what terrifies him most. Not the transformation, the remembering. Because who is he really when all the old masks crumble? Who is he when he's not running, not hiding, not performing? Who is he when he's just loved? So here's my question for you. When he finally stops seeing forever as a sentence and starts recognizing it as the answer to every prayer he's ever whispered in the dark, will you recognize the man who's learned to stop fearing his own wings? Imagine standing at the edge of the universe, toes curled over the event horizon of a black hole. Not the terrifying kind that sucks you into oblivion, but the sacred kind that births galaxies. That's what it feels like for the masculine when he truly encounters the feminine's love. Not just a woman, not just a relationship, but the Divine Mother herself, the primordial force that created him, that knows every shadow in his soul, that whispers, "Let go, my child, I will catch you." And that's the most terrifying invitation of his life. Because here's the secret no one tells him. The feminine doesn't just love him. She remembers him. She recalls the shape of his soul before the world etched its scars into him. And that kind of recognition, it doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like exposure, like being seen naked under a spotlight when he spent a lifetime sewing himself a suit of armor. Think about it. What's more vulnerable than being mothered as a grown man? Not infantilized, not coddled, but held in the way only the divine feminine can hold. With a love so vast, it dissolves every lie he's ever believed about himself. A love that doesn't say you're perfect, but you're already whole. And wholeness, to a man who's built his identity on not enough, feels like an earthquake to his foundation. Ever watched a grown man cry in his mother's arms? Not the polite tears, not the stoic grimace, the heaving, snotty, "I'm 5 years old again" kind of breakdown. That's what the feminine's love threatens to unlock in him. Not because she wants to reduce him, but because she refuses to let him pretend he doesn't still carry those wounds. And nothing scares the masculine more than the prospect of falling apart in front of someone he desperately wants to impress. But here's the cosmic joke. The Divine Mother isn't impressed by his armor. She's unimpressed by it. She didn't come for the polished version of him. She came for the ash beneath the phoenix, the raw, unformed clay of who he is when all the titles and trophies turn to dust. And clay in the hands of the Divine Mother isn't shameful, it's sacred. It's the very stuff of rebirth. So why does he run? Because surrender to this love isn't just about opening his heart. It's about dissolving the illusion that he ever needed to protect it in the first place. It's about admitting on the most primal level that he needs her, not as a prize, not as a muse, but as the ground beneath his feet. And need, to a man who's been taught his worth is in his independence, feels like death. But here's what his soul knows, even when his ego fights it. What feels like annihilation is actually homecoming. The divine feminine isn't here to devour him. She's here to remember him back to himself. And that's the ultimate surrender. Not to her, but to the truth that he is loved, has always been loved, will always be loved. Not for what he does, but for what he is. So tell me, when he finally stops fearing the collapse and lets your love rearrange him? Will you recognize the man who's learned to stop running from the very love that birthed him? You know that moment in a storm when the wind suddenly stills, when the air holds its breath, and for one suspended heartbeat, the world pauses, not in fear, but in anticipation of what comes next. That's where the masculine stands when he finally stops running. Not at the end of the journey, but at the edge of a revelation so vast it rewrites his entire story. Here's the truth we've been circling around like a sacred fire. Fear isn't the opposite of love. It's the raw material love uses to build courage. Every time he pulled away, every silent treatment, every conflicted glance, those weren't rejections of you. They were the tremors of a soul learning to walk on new tectonic plates, each step sending shockwaves through the carefully constructed fault lines of his identity. Think about how diamonds are made. It's not the pressure that creates them, it's the release. The moment the carbon finally stops resisting and allows itself to be rearranged into something luminous. That's what your love has been offering him all along. Not a cage, but a crucible. Not a demand, but an invitation to become something even he doesn't yet recognize. And you've been the constant in this equation. The North Star he both steered by and fled from. Not because you were too bright, but because your light revealed how long he'd been navigating with someone else's maps. That's the real reason twin flames trigger such primal fear. They don't just show us who we are, they show us who we pretended to be. But here's the miracle hidden in all this chaos. The very things that made him run are the keys to his return. The feminine's depth that overwhelmed him, it's the mirror showing his own capacity for feeling. The spiritual responsibility that terrified him, it's the calling he's been mute to his whole life, even the divine mother energy that threatened to dissolve him. It's the home he's been homesick for since before time began. So where does this leave you, sacred witness to this metamorphosis? In the most powerful position of all, the one who gets to love without waiting, not waiting for him to figure it out, not waiting for the universe to align, but living, thriving in the radical truth that you are already whole, that your love isn't lacking just because someone isn't yet ready to drink from its depths. And when he does return, it won't be as the man who left. It'll be as the man your love helped him remember he always was. Not because you fixed him, but because you saw him, truly saw him, even when he couldn't bear to look at himself. So here's my final question for you. When this divine comedy reaches its climax, when the runner stops seeing love as something to fear and starts recognizing it as the only thing worth running toward, will you still be the one holding space for his awakening? Or better yet, will you still be holding space for your own?